Direct News TV. March 7, 2024. Israel's war on Gaza live, intense fighting in Khan Younis ahead of talks. 6 months into Israel's war on Gaza, there is no end in sight to hostilities, with Israeli forces and Palestinian fighters engaged in intense combat around the city of Khan Younis. Hamas claimed it killed 14 Israeli soldiers during ambushes there. Mediators are expected to resume ceasefire talks in Egypt's capital, Cairo. Hamas sent a delegation and the Israeli War Cabinet is expected to meet to decide if it will also participate. Israeli army withdraws from the west of Khan Younis city, reports. Israeli media report the Israeli army has withdrawn from the western portion of Khan Younis city in the southern Gaza Strip. The 98th Division, with its 3 brigades, withdrew from Khan Younis last night after the end of the operation there after fighting that lasted 4 months, Army radio reports. Only 1 brigade is left in Gaza, the Nahal Brigade, which is responsible for securing the corridor established by the Israeli army to prevent displaced Gaza people from returning to the north, it added. Palestinian sources told Anadolu news agency Israeli forces retreated from all western areas of Khan Younis city, but they remain stationed in the east. As of this stage of the maneuver, the Israeli army completed its operation in Khan Younis and soldiers have completed their exit from there, Israel's Channel 12 said. Forces consisting of 4 different brigades are now stationed in the humanitarian corridor and in the northern Gaza Strip in the Beit Hanoun area. British PM says Israeli wounds unhealed in anniversary statement. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak reiterates that Britain stands by Israel's right to defend itself in a statement marking the 6-month anniversary of the war. 6 months later, Israeli wounds are still unhealed. Families still mourn and hostages are still held by Hamas. And after 6 months of war in Gaza, the toll on civilians continues to grow: hunger, desperation, loss of life on an awful scale, Sunak said in a statement posted on X. Sunak added the United Kingdom was shocked by the deaths of the British volunteers who were killed in the Israeli strike on the world's central kitchen workers. The children of Gaza need a humanitarian pause immediately, leading to a long-term sustainable ceasefire. That is the fastest way to get hostages out and aid in, and to stop the fighting and loss of life, the PM said. Israel's war on Gaza means never-ending displacement, UNRWA. The UN agency highlighted that 6 months of Israel's war on Gaza meant 6 months of never-ending displacement for the Palestinians of the besieged enclave. It said on X that around 1.7 million people have been forced to flee their homes in Gaza because of Israeli attacks across the territory. Thousands of families it sheltered have nowhere to go. It's an interesting time to hear about the Israeli brigades pulling out of the vast majority of areas in the Gaza Strip, with the exception of a couple thousand soldiers in the central area. It's an area separating the southern part of the Strip from the northern part. In Gaza, it's better known as Netzarim Junction. According to a statement made by the Israeli military, the reason to stay there is to prevent people from going back to their homes in the northern part of Gaza City. Right now, what we're looking at is not a complete withdrawal but rather a tactical one. Some of the troops are still there in Deir el-Bala, in the eastern part of the city, at the Netzarim Junction right at the Erez, Beit Hanoun, crossing. It's largely viewed as a tool of pressure in the talks in Cairo, but many people believe this is more of a tactical redeployment, a preparation for expanding the ground offensive in Rafah city, which is consistent with the acts on the ground so far. Movement of Israeli troops could mean return of Palestinians to North Gaza. A news report says the Israeli military has withdrawn all ground troops from the southern Gaza Strip except for 1 brigade, or a few thousand soldiers. There might be 2 things going on here. We could see a redeployment of forces in anticipation of any ground offensive into southern Rafah. That plays into the next thing we're hearing, that by only having a few thousand troops, Israel may well be getting ready to allow people from Rafah to go back into northern Gaza. That is something quite key that Hamas has been demanding. It means they are allowed to go back to their homes in northern Gaza, destroyed as those homes might be. It also gives Israel the opportunity to get a lot of civilians out of Rafah and into the northern territory, which allows it to mount that offensive. The fact that we've now seen movement in these ceasefire talks in Egypt, with both the Israelis and Hamas confirming attendance, all of this could well be connected, and that's really what we're hearing right now. Israeli embassies no longer safe, Iranian official. Yahya Rahim Safavi, a senior advisor to Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khomeini, says none of Israel's embassies are safe anymore, the semi-official Tasnim news agency reports. He added Tehran viewed confrontation with Israel as a legitimate and legal right. Iran's semi-official ISNA news agency published a graphic it said showcased 9 different types of Iranian missiles capable of hitting Israel. Safavi's comments come as Israel is on high alert following a suspected Israeli strike on the Iranian consulate last week in the Syrian capital, Damascus, which killed 7 members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, including 2 top generals. Tehran has vowed to take revenge. Israel's defense minister said earlier the country is ready to handle any scenario that may develop with its arch-foe Iran. Child among 15 Palestinians arrested in occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Prisoners Society says Israeli forces arrested at least 15 Palestinians in Hebron, Jerusalem, Ramallah, Bethlehem, and Jenin overnight. Those arrested included a child, 2 former prisoners, and a graduate student at Birzeit University, it said in a statement on Telegram. The occupation forces continue to carry out widespread raids and harassment during arrest campaigns, accompanied by severe beatings, threats against detainees and their families, direct shooting with the aim of killing, in addition to widespread sabotage and destruction of citizens' homes. It added the total number of arrests made after October 7 rose to at least 8,100. Israeli opposition leader in U.S. to meet senior Biden officials. Yair Lapid is expected to meet Secretary of State Antony Blinken, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, and other officials later on Sunday in Washington, D.C. During his visit, Lapid will also talk to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who last month called for a snap election in Israel to give voters a chance to get rid of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whom he described as one of the major obstacles to peace. Speaking to Channel 12 News on Saturday, Lapid blamed Netanyahu for what he called a collapse in relations with Washington and said it was questionable if the ties could even be fully repaired by future governments. My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.